Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're picking up our ongoing exploration of organizational resilience today with a really critical juncture, business continuity strategies. You know how you first figure out what could go wrong and how bad it could be? Well, this is where you decide exactly how you're going to get back in the game.
That's right. It's fundamentally the action planning phase. We're focusing on Professional Practice 4, Business Continuity Strategies from DRI International's framework.
Right.
Specifically, pages 16 through 18 of their 2023 Professional Practices document.
Okay.
Our goal here is to provide a really clear understanding of the objectives, the role of the business continuity professional at this stage, and crucially, the key activities involved.
If you're aiming to make sure your organization can weather any storm, this is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first objective laid out is selecting strategies to reduce the gaps. Gaps we've already identified through our risk assessment and BIA.
Exactly. It's a direct follow-on.
So it connects right back.
It does. This isn't about dreaming up scenarios anymore. We've already pinpointed vulnerabilities. We understand the potential damage.
Okay.
Now the task is to strategically choose solutions that directly address those specific weaknesses and the impacts they could have.
And the business continuity professional is really the linchpin here, wouldn't you say? Taking all that data from the risk assessment, the BIA, and figuring out which strategies will actually help us meet those recovery targets.
The RTOs or
RPOs, yeah, and the overall recovery needs. It's about translating that analysis into practical solutions.
Precisely. Making informed decisions based on the data you've gathered. And that leads us right into the activities for this first objective.
Okay.
The first step is a focused review of the recovery requirements for each functional area.
Which, of course, came straight out of the business impact analysis.
Exactly.
So we're making sure we're crystal clear on what needs recovering and when for every single part of the organization.
That's the foundation. From there, the next key activity is identifying the actual business continuity strategies we could potentially use.
And the document gives quite a list, right?
It does, quite a range of options to consider.
It kicks off with manual workaround procedures, the old school way.
Yeah.
Pen and paper time when the systems go down. Is that mainly for very short disruptions?
That's generally the idea. Can critical tasks be done manually, maybe slower, but done nonetheless while tech issues get fixed? It's basic, but often vital.
A first line of defense.
Then you have reciprocal agreements. Think of it like a mutual aid pact with another similar organization.
Right. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours in a disaster. I always wonder how reliable those are if both parties get hit.
That's a very valid point. It highlights a key risk you need to assess, the reliability and actual capacity of your partner.
Okay.
The document also mentions using internal multi-use space repurposing, say, conference rooms, training rooms, even cafeterias as temporary workspaces.
But the crucial thing there is the setup time, right?
Absolutely crucial.
You can't have an RTO of, say, 2 hours if it takes half a day just to get the phones and networks running in the cafeteria.
Speed of deployment is absolutely critical. It has to align with the RTO.
Makes sense. Then we move to external alternate sites, the more traditional backup office. What are the key things to look for when evaluating those?
Several key factors. Location is huge. It needs to be far enough away to avoid the same disaster, but still accessible for your people.
Right.
Then the availability and suitability. Does the space actually work for what you need to do?
Yeah.
Robust communications, voice, and data, absolutely non-negotiable. Essential equipment and materials need to be available or quickly deployable.
And security.
Physical security, the site's own resilience, reliable power, internet, all of that needs careful checking.
Sounds like finding the right external site is a big project in itself.
It can be. Other strategies mentioned include contracting with third-party providers or outsourcers.
Especially for specialized things like IT recovery.
Exactly. Workload transfer to a surviving site is another option if you have multiple locations.
Okay.
And similarly, maybe transferring staff to a surviving site.
And then there's that idea of suspending non-critical stuff.
Yes. Suspending non-time sensitive operations and temporarily shifting people and their workload to a site that's still running. It's triage, basically.
Focusing all available energy on what absolutely must keep going.
Precisely. Prioritizing core functions during the crisis. Building a dedicated alternate site is another possibility.
Though probably more expensive and time-consuming.
Generally, yes. A significant investment. And of course, remote work options. They become so much more central lately.
Hugely important, yeah. So that's quite a menu of strategies.
Yeah.
The document also gets specific about manufacturing and distribution, doesn't it? They have unique challenges.
They really do. For them, things like repair or rebuild of facility is obviously a major one.
Right.
Shifting production to another line or another site if it's compatible. Retooling machinery if it's damaged but salvageable.
What about inventory?
Using existing inventory, absolutely, or any excess capacity in other facilities. Those are key short-term tactics.
Okay.
They might also need to consider suspending or cutting back production, or even buying back finished product already out there to redistribute.
Wow, really?
Yeah, or offering substitutes, or as a last resort, maybe outsourcing production temporarily. Very industry-specific thinking needed there.
Okay, that covers the first objective pretty well. The second objective then asks us to identify the major functions, including potential third-party service providers. Why is that flagged separately here?
This objective really hammers home the need for a complete picture of the organization's whole operational ecosystem, all the critical interdependencies.
Okay.
You can't build a solid continuity plan if you don't know all the essential moving parts and, crucially, who you rely on externally to keep them running.
So third parties are key here.
Absolutely. And collaborating closely with whoever led the BIA is vital because they've already done that deep dive into core functions and dependencies.
Got it. So it's about leveraging that existing knowledge to ensure no vital piece is missed when designing the strategies.
Exactly. Don't reinvent the wheel.
And this leads into the next set of activities. Protecting vital hard copy records is mentioned. Is paper still a big deal?
You know, surprisingly often, yes. While everything's going digital, many places still rely on physical paper for legal, regulatory, or just core operational reasons.
Okay, so how do you protect it?
Well, two main ways mentioned. First, routinely scanning important documents to secure cloud or other off-site storage, digital copies.
Makes sense.
Second, storing physical photocopies off-site. But, and this is important, they caution about potential legal limits. Copies might not always substitute for originals.
Ah, that's a critical point. Good flag. And for storing these, whether digital offsite backups or physical copies, the same site evaluation criteria apply.
Exactly the same. Location, accessibility, security, environmental controls if needed. The storage has to be resilient too.
Right. The security of your backups is paramount.
Following that, the document stresses assessing the viability of all the strategies we've brainstormed, using clear criteria.
Okay, and what are those main criteria for judging them?
Primarily, can they actually meet our recovery objectives, the RTOs and RPOs we set? That's job one.
Okay.
Then, a clear comparison. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each potential solution?
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. And inevitably, a thorough cost-benefit analysis for each option.
That cost-benefit thing keeps popping up. Seems central.
It absolutely is. You need practical, financially sound plans, which leads nicely into the next activity. Reviewing existing insurance coverage.
As a risk transfer tool.
Exactly. Insurance can really soften the financial blow of a disruption. The document lists several relevant types to look at.
Such as, what should people be thinking about?
Things like cyber insurance, obviously huge now, extra expense insurance for recovery costs, business interruption for lost income,
Okay.
contingent business interruption that covers you if a key supplier or customer gets hit.
The supply chain angle.
Yep. Then general liability, payroll insurance, property and casualty, and specific natural disaster coverage, like flood insurance if you're exposed.
So it's not just having insurance, but understanding how each policy fits into the recovery plan.
And doing that cost-benefit analysis again.
Yeah.
How much risk does the insurance actually offset versus the premium cost?
Got it. Okay, next up, specific strategies for technology. Meeting IT RTOs and RPOs. That's a massive area for most businesses.
Huge. Absolutely critical.
So what kind of tech strategies are highlighted?
Again, manual workarounds are there as a baseline, maybe for minor glitches.
Right.
But then you get into dedicated tech solutions. Systems designed for recovery objectives, maybe multiple geographically dispersed data centers.
Avoids a single point of failure.
Exactly. High availability systems for quick failover. Using third-party IT recovery services, and increasingly leveraging cloud computing.
Cloud seems like it offers a lot of built-in resilience.
It can, definitely, but it's not magic. You still need careful planning for how you use the cloud for recovery to meet your specific RTOs and RPOs.
True. What else on the tech front?
Identifying recovery sites with the right environmental controls, cooling, power for sensitive gear, and having the tech ready to support remote workforces, if that's part of your strategy.
And let me guess, cost-benefit analysis comes up again for tech.
You guessed it. Along with considering logistical hurdles, regulatory issues, financial implications, and even potential supply chain problems for getting replacement hardware or software. It's complex.
It really is.
The document also suggests collaborating with external groups, industry peers maybe, to share info on strategies learned from others.
Good idea. Then we circle back to the supply chain.
Yes, specifically revisiting those supplier and customer dependencies identified back in the BIA. These can seriously affect which strategies are feasible.
Especially if you have to relocate. Deliveries could get complicated.
Exactly. It's that ripple effect again. A supplier issue becomes your issue fast. Understanding those connections is vital.
Okay. Now, we hit the cost-benefit analysis one more time, but framed more broadly.
Yes, this time it's about conducting a detailed cost-benefit analysis for every single strategy you're seriously considering implementing.
Right.
The goal is to make sure the chosen recovery approach is proportionate. Is the cost justified by the potential impact you're mitigating?
Does it align with the business needs?
And financial realities, regulatory constraints, and those recovery objectives. The cost shouldn't outweigh the value of what you're protecting.
Makes sense. And factor in insurance coverage here, too.
Yes, definitely consider how insurance payouts might affect the net cost or benefit of a particular strategy. It's a holistic financial view.
Okay. And the final activity listed.
The crucial final step: recommending your chosen strategies and getting formal leadership approval to actually implement them.
Can't skip that one.
Absolutely not. This means clear documentation of the recommendations, the rationale, the costs, and securing that essential buy-in from senior management.
Because without leadership support,
You'll struggle. For resources, for organizational commitment, for everything. Documented recommendations and formal approval make it real.
So to kind of bring it all together, this deep dive into business continuity strategies really shows it's a deliberate process, right? Making informed choices on how to recover.
Very deliberate.
It's deeply tied to the risk assessment and BIA beforehand.
Absolutely rooted in that analysis.
We've walked through a whole range of strategies, operations, tech, and seen that constant emphasis on weighing costs against benefits.
That practical reality check.
And ultimately, none of it works without leadership understanding and backing the plan.
Precisely. This practice is about moving from just understanding threats to actively planning resilience, turning analysis into concrete, actionable steps to minimize disruption and keep the organization going.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
Think about the single most vital function in your own work, or maybe your whole organization. What would be the most effective, most realistic strategy to keep that specific function going if the unexpected happened? Consider the options we talked about: manual processes, alternate sites, tech solutions, insurance. How might they apply to your specific critical function? It really comes down to proactive preparation, doesn't it? Not just reacting when things go wrong.
Well said. Preparation is key.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.